Hi everybody, welcome to Shiver Speaks. Today we're doing a movie review of Longlegs. This movie came out last Friday, July 14th, 13th, and it is different. It is bizarre. Fast forward to the end if you don't want any spoilers and you just want to hear the review. And I apologize, camera's not working today. So for those of you watching, I hope you still listen. So Longlegs, this is a true crime type of movie. I went into it with the expectations of reading Rotten Tomato reviews. They are very, very high. A lot of people were comparing this movie to Silence of the Lambs. That is not at all what this movie is all about. So Longlegs himself is Nicolas Cage. He is the serial killer that we're really focused on. However, we start the movie by getting just a glimpse of him, and it's really scary. And I think having that be the beginning of the movie and then having the rest of the movie be what it is didn't really lead up to that same level of intenseness that we saw in the very beginning. So we then kind of flash forward. Our main character is Lee Harker. She's an FBI agent, and we come to find out that she's sort of psychic. She and her partner are looking for this other serial killer, and she turns around to this one house and she's like, he's in there. I just have a feeling we should call it in. They go to the door, and lo and behold, that serial killer's in there. So I don't really know what the point of us knowing that she's sort of psychic is, because she doesn't use that for the whole rest of the movie. So that was a little bit of the first question mark and flag. But her sergeant, which is Agent Carter, then puts her on this Longlegs case. He says, I don't know how you kind of figured out where this serial killer was and how he was in that house, but we'll give you the opportunity to try to work on this Longlegs case because it's been open for a really long time and we have no leads, we have nothing. Longlegs is the serial killer who's leaving these cryptic messages behind in not English language, really not in any language, and we can't really figure it out. All we know is that the father of the family is killing the mother and the children and then himself in every single one of these cases. So she goes home, she's racking her brain trying to figure this out, and then Longlegs himself comes into her home, leaves her this birthday card, and gives her basically the code to decipher his messages. She doesn't tell her agent how she figured this out, because after she deciphers his code, it says basically, if you tell your sergeant how you figured this out, then I'm going to kill your mother. So she gives her mom a call, just kind of checks in, and every single time she calls her mother, she's like, Lee, is that you? And Lee's like, yes, I'm still your only child. So every single time they're on the phone, they have the same conversation. Her mom's kind of out of it, and it leads me to believe that we're going to come to find out that, maybe her psychic ability is making her talk to her dead mom, or her mom's not really real. But that's not the case at all. So Agent Carter and her put all the puzzle pieces together that all of the people who are dying have little girls who have birthdays on the 14th of the month. And the families are dying within 6 days of that 14th date in order on a map to draw out these satanic symbols. So there's only one date that nobody is dead yet, and that is the 13th of January. And guess what? It is January 10th or so. So we need to figure out what family is going to have a child who has a birthday on the 14th, and to complete the picture would then have to die or have a birthday party or something on the 13th, the day before. So they don't really know who is going to have a birthday. Obviously, it's very difficult to find out. But we flash forward and backward, and we start to actually see Longlegs himself. And he is not as scary as I imagined. He just honestly looks like Marilyn Manson. He looks nothing like Nicolas Cage, though. So if you told me time and time again, like, you have to guess who this person is, I would never guess it was Nicolas Cage. He gives off a performance that is very similar to Joker. It is manic, it is crazy, but it's not scary. It's just intimidating a little bit. So I thought that that was the first, like, didn't live up to the hype. We move on through the story and we come to find out after they are able to apprehend Longlegs, he starts talking to Lee Harker, our main character, and says, well, actually, you should ask your mom how I know who you are. And then he says, hail Satan, and he kills himself in the police precinct. So she goes back home. Her mom is alive. And she's like, Mom, what do you know about Longlegs? How do you know this guy? What do you know about anything? And she takes her into the backyard, and there's this doll that is exactly a replica of what Lee Harker looked like when she was a child. And the mother is like, okay, well, I'm going to set you free. Doesn't answer any questions, just shoots this doll in the face. And then Lee Harker passes out. Earlier in the movie, we see a doll that is in an abandoned barn of one of the original families who's been killed. And that doll looked like the doll of the looked like the actual little girl who was in that family. And inside the head of this doll was this silver ball. And when the autopsy person put this machine up against the ball, it sounded like a heartbeat. And he's like, oh, I swear this thing was telling me to kill my ex-wife. Haha. So we know that there's something up with this ball. And now after the mother shoots it in the head and it's attached to Lee, we know now that there is some sort of supernatural element at play. So after doing some chasing, we find out the twist is that her mother was helping Longlegs, and Longlegs was living in the basement of their home this entire time. And Longlegs tried to take and kidnap Lee when she was a child. The mother said, no, I'll do anything. I'll help you, blah, blah, blah. Don't take my kid. And so she put him up and dressed up as a nun and went to these families' houses with these dolls that looked like their children and said, oh, you won a prize from the church. Please let me in and let me give you your winnings. And it was always this doll. So it's never blatantly explained that these dolls have ties to the actual children, but it's certainly implied. So we then get to the end. Lee Harker wakes up. She realizes it's her mom. She goes in the basement, sees that's where Longlegs has been this entire time. And she then puts the puzzle pieces together, tracks down her mom, and her mom is at Agent Carter's house because Agent Carter has a daughter whose birthday is on January 14th, and they are having a birthday party on January 13th. You think that the FBI Sergeant Detective Agent Carter would put two and two together on his own, or at least be a little bit leery on throwing his daughter a birthday party on the 13th of January when we know that that is the date of the death. But I digress. So he becomes sort of possessed. He kills his wife. She has a confrontation with her mother, ends up killing her mother, and she tries to shoot this doll, and the doll won't die, and she's unable to shoot the doll, but she saves a little girl. And that's how the movie ends. So it is very bizarre. It is so much different than what I had expected. I thought it was going to be much more crime-related, much more thriller-esque, puzzle piece solving, that type of thing. That's not at all what we got. So on a scale of 1 to 5, for the story itself, I will give it a 4 out of 5. I thought that it was something different. It was creative. It was certainly a roller coaster. For originality, though, I will only give it a 3 out of 5. Because we've seen a lot of movies before that have satanic elements in them, supernatural elements in them, anything like that. And I also felt like so much of this movie was stolen from The Black Phone. Not only in the way that he looks with his long legs and his face painted and everything like that, but also the idea that he lives in the house of our main character and she didn't know. And then the kidnapping and sort of possession over these children in a sense. So I felt like there were certainly a lot of borrowed inspirations or elements from The Black Phone, and I'm such a big fan of The Black Phone that it makes me a little protective. For acting, I will definitely give it a 5 out of 5. I think that is what carried this movie through and through. And anybody who's leaving reviews that this movie is so scary, I think it's just because the acting is very convincing. But everybody did a great job. For production, it is also a 5 out of 5. This is a big movie. There's a lot of moving pieces. It's framed very well. My only complaint in that is that I've seen a lot of movies where they have these big wide angles, and it's very evident that we need to be looking in the background. There's background elements, background items. And so there are a number of times where, like, Lee would be trying to walk around her mom's house and the camera would pan out and you would just see these devil horns. So you know that there's something at play, but it made it a little bit overly predictable. And then for scares, I'll give it a 3 out of 5. Like I said before, I think the acting element makes it very convincing, makes it very believable. And I think that that's what really carries this entire movie. It is set in the 80s, so it's nice to have a lot of those 80s elements, the cars, the carpet, the walls, everything like that. So that makes it very fun. So overall, we get a score of 4 out of 5. I think it is good. It's not great. I wouldn't go and pay for this movie in a movie theater again. I think it's a good one to watch when it's out for free. I wouldn't outwardly recommend it. I think in maybe 2 or 3 years from now, I'm probably going to forget about this movie. And even talking about it afterwards, there's so many more questions than there are answers. Like, we don't even know why Nicolas Cage's name is Longlegs. He signs everything Longlegs, but there's no explanation to that. There's no explanation to so many things. And I think that's where it really falls apart for me. But let me know what your thoughts are. If you've watched it, if you're afraid of it, if you haven't seen it, what are your expectations of it? And how does your ranking really match up with ours? So thanks for listening and enjoy the rest of your week.